I wasn't told at the meeting. Actually, I wasn't even invited to the meeting. Is someone who is... Thank you very much, Paul. Those are good. You'll get your chance. Just wait. Is someone who adjectives cannot describe. I mean, he's this guy right here. Yeah. Roger Wagner, come on down. This is the last few minutes of your life.
Is this a prize for the first time?
Yes, actually, we had 3 of these printed up, and we were going to give one of these away as the prize. And we were going to give him one anyway in remembrance of this lovely night. So now, our first speaker, who has lovely things to say, at least he's told me, about Roger and his ancestry, is the aforementioned editor, programmer. What do you do?
Good question. There.
Guy that works at SoftDisk, JJ.
That comes later. You know, in these days of developers jumping ship and abandoning our favorite computer, someone forgot to tell Roger Wagner that the Apple II GS is dead. And I'm glad he didn't hear that story. And in return for his tireless evangelism, we're here to nail it to the wall tonight. It just shows how far you could go. Actually, I don't want to be mean to him because I just found out that he's got a niece that's single and the right age. You know, if you get as old as I am, you get desperate. So I really don't have much bad to say about him. Actually, I don't have much of anything to say about him because I've known him for several years, but it's just been you know, a little here and there, and at KansasFest and stuff. Got the dress occasionally. Just so I can. Thank you. Thank you.
I give you something else, it's $50 now.
Really? Well, I'm trying to think of what to say. I'm trying to figure out what to say last night, and because I like to be prepared a long time ahead of time. And I couldn't think of anything, so I decided to go to the guy who has all the answers. So I went over to Ridgeway and talked to Dean Esmate. A2 dot help, after all. So Dean took me into a room and sat down and thought and finally said, "Can you get out of it?" I said, "I think so, but I gotta have a good excuse." And his final piece of advice was, "Well, maybe I can get Donnie Grimes to come in here and bust a couple of your ribs." So I left the room and decided to go straight to the guy who knows all about Roger. I actually went to Roger himself, and I found him in his room, sitting hunched over a little tiny screen, playing with the latest version of Hyper Studio. A little tiny screen, really cute. And sitting there just playing with Hyper Studio. I told him I needed some advice, and he said no problem. Now, those of you who have talked to Roger before know that you can ask him any question. The problem is scheduling enough time to listen to the answer. So I found myself wandering up and down the halls in his wake while he's visiting rooms, and he's telling me things that I can talk about right and left, just off the top of his head. And a few of them in no particular order, where he said, tell everybody how I helped you get your start in the Apple II world and how grateful you are for that. And I said, explain how my work with the poor and needy keep me from changing a few things in Hyper Studio. And he said you could also talk about my impeccable sense of style. So during during one of the few microsecond lulls in the mostly one-way conversation, we happened upon Bo Monroe. Roger said, well, here, Bo can help you think of some things to talk about. He knows all about me. So, So Roger took off into the nearest dorm room, played a disc and sang something about the latest wares dude. Left me with Bo. Bo knew I was having a crisis and tried to help me out. He says, well, you can talk about how skinny he is. But being on the opposite end of the spectrum from that, I didn't really want to give him any ammunition. So Bo said, talk about his ties. You know, but there's not really a whole lot you can say about his ties that haven't already said for themselves. The only thing I know is that when he goes shopping for ties, Kmart stock goes up about 4 points. Hang Time wandered by at that point and said, well, you could talk about Hyper Studio. Hang Time was on his way to a meeting in the Genie headquarters where what looked like the remnants of a motorcycle gang had turned into the sysops from hell. So I stopped by to see if they had any ideas. Most of them were not mentionable in public. A few of them I'm still trying to figure out. The sheep on the trapeze thing. And the rest of them about Roger were just plain scary. Well, I escaped the sysops from hell with my sanity and most of my virtue intact. And I decided to go back to my room and see if a little sleep would help me figure out something to say. And it didn't.
Thank you very much, Jay. That was excellent. All right, our next speaker here in my book is Tim Sweetheart. Again, Tim is. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I'll make it easy. Just go with Tim.
Next speaker is Tim.
Tim. I just want to preface my remarks here that say the comments are not necessarily based on reality. It's Roger, come on.
Just remember, I've been left alone.
Well, we're here tonight to pay homage to the man that's sometimes been referred to as the Dan Quayle of the Apple II world. I'm kidding, you're much closer to Jimmy Carter. When they asked me to put together some material for the presentation, nobody told me it was going to be censored before we could give it. So, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to relate a story about Roger's wild weekend with the Doublemint twins. You'll have to get that one from Roger directly like I did.
Pam's not laughing.
She can get it from Roger later, too. He'll be happy to But I would like to thank Roger, though, for loaning everybody on the panel one of his ties. One of the early years before he had a taste of the collection. Not many of you know this, but Roger recently tried to donate his tie collection to the Smithsonian, but the box came back marked return to sender address unknown. And in southern